Sports biopic Love a Hero who cares for nothing other than victory before stepping onto the field. Joe Namath, the legendary American football quarterback, famously promised a championship for his football team and then miraculously delivered it. Sir Alex Ferguson is widely considered the most successful football coach of all time. He was famous for his intense, face-to-face shouting at players who fell below his standards. Po Shen Loh did the exact opposite when he took command of his team. When he was made the head coach of the US Math Olympiad program, he told the selectors openly, "Well, if you put me in charge, we'll probably do worse. Because I'm not going to focus on how the students do this year. I'm more interested in maximizing the chance that I read about the students in the New York Times in 20 years." In 2015, Loh led the US team to victory in the Mathematics Olympiad for the first time in 21 years. The team repeated its victory again in 2016, and Loh and the high school students were invited to the White House for their achievements. Loh coached the US IMO team to another set of consecutive wins in 2018 and 2019. This is the story of how, in just a matter of years, Loh became the most successful coach in the history of the International Mathematics Olympiad. This is the story of a man whose unique coaching style turned the US Math Olympiad team from a laggard into an unstoppable force that can't stop winning. The story started in 2013. The executive director of the Mathematical Association of America at that time was a mathematician named Michael Pearson. Pearson needed a winner. The stakes were incredibly high for the organization and for the pride of the country. The United States had not secured a first-place team finish at the International Mathematics Olympiad competition since 1994. Pearson wanted a return to national glory, and he initiated a formal dialogue with Loh about taking the highly coveted head coaching job. Loh looked at Pearson and told him, "If you put me on the team as the coach, we are going to do worse." He would not focus on whether the United States wins the contest. His primary goal was to maximize the chance that these young men and women would do extraordinary things later on as they grow. He wanted to prepare them for a lifetime of intellectual struggle. He viewed the immediate pursuit of a plastic trophy as far too small an ambition for the brilliant young minds under his care. Despite this highly unusual pitch, Pearson hired him anyway. Loh took control and immediately dismantled the traditional pressure cooker of competitive math. He replaced it with a breathing living system designed to breed long-term thinkers. The International Mathematical Olympiad stands as the most difficult academic proving ground in the world. It is the equivalent of the Olympic Games, but for mathematicians. Over 100 countries send their 6 best mathematical minds to compete every single year in foreign cities. Before Loh became the head coach, Team USA was entirely elite, but they often finished just short of the #1 spot. The competition was dominated by China, which won it a record 12 times out of 15 between 2000 and 2014. China looked unbeatable. The last time the United States held the #1 position was in 1994. For a mathematician who specializes in combinatorics, or the math of permutations and combinations, Loh knew that odds were not stacked in his favor. Loh grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. The winters there are famously bitter and freezing, forcing a young boy to spend plenty of time indoors reading, studying, and thinking. His parents were immigrants from Singapore, who built a life centered heavily around education and discipline. His father, Vivian Loh, worked as a statistics professor at the University of Wisconsin. His mother, Teresa Loh, had taught math in Singapore before moving to the United States. A local newspaper dubbed them the capital city's first family of math. He received an early taste for these hard math puzzles when he was just 11 years old. His father handed him a thick book of math puzzles. One specific challenge asked him to logically make 4 triangles out of 6 wooden matchsticks. Loh stared at the matchsticks for a long time. He tried to lay them flat on the kitchen table. It was logically impossible. He arranged them and rearranged them until he got frustrated. Then he suddenly realized the answer. He had to make the shape 3-dimensional, physically forming a pyramid in the air. The emotion of having cracked it hooked him completely. The massive payoff of a breakthrough, after sustained heavy thinking, switched on a particular part of his brain. When he was a young teenager, he jumped into the intense world of math counts. Math Counts is a national middle school mathematics competition in the United States. It became his boot camp for handling crazy pressure while still thinking outside the box. He got to represent Wisconsin twice at the National Math Counts Championships, going head-to-head with the brainiest kids around. The clock taught him how to keep a cool head even when his heart was pounding and his hands were sweating. In '99, he hit the absolute peak of high school math. He flew all the way to Bucharest, Romania, to proudly compete in the International Mathematical Olympiad, and walked away from that global stage with a silver medal. This adventure changed his perception of proving things in math. It was a total light bulb moment about what a correct answer actually means. He discovered that Olympiad solutions are a completely different animal from the typical school answer, which is usually just a single number quickly circled at the bottom of a page. Unlike those quick answers, an Olympiad solution can demand a whole page of writing, requiring a long sequence of pure logical reasoning. He started expecting that when he saw a new question, he wouldn't immediately know the answer. Instead, he trained his mind to patiently gather his ideas, reason his way through the problem until a solution finally showed up. This changed his relationship with numbers. Math stopped being about speed or memorization. It became about telling a logical story and slowly, carefully building an argument that couldn't be poked full of holes. Po Shen Loh went to college with drive and an urge to prove himself. He went to the famously tough California Institute of Technology, or Caltech. Being his usual stubborn self, he wore his signature shorts all year long, a commitment he made as a freshman because he was finally dressing for the warm weather he missed back home. The Caltech curriculum was notoriously difficult, but Loh crushed it, graduating at the very top of his class in 2004 with a perfect 4.3 GPA. His academic success earned him major financial backing, including the Barry Goldwater Scholarship and the prestigious Hertz Fellowship. The Hertz Fellowship basically gives the brightest science and tech grad students the financial breathing room they need to innovate. After Caltech, he headed across the pond to the historic University of Cambridge, where he snagged his master's degree in 2005 on a Churchill Scholarship for a year of study. Being in England forced him to become a much more independent thinker, away from his usual support system. He then came back to the States for his PhD at Princeton University, studying directly with Benny Sudikoff. Benny Sudikoff is a highly prominent and influential research mathematician, primarily known for his work in combinatorics and graph theory. He is widely regarded as one of the world's leading experts in extremal combinatorics, which deals with finding the maximum or minimum possible size of a collection of objects that satisfies certain restrictions. Sudikoff taught Loh the vital lesson of confidently setting up his own unique problems and building on what others had already done, instead of wasting time Reinventing the Wheel. Loh's dissertation was laser-focused on extremal and probabilistic combinatorics. This long, hard road turned him from just a brilliant math student into a self-assured creator of new mathematical knowledge, ready to make a real impact on the field. Combinatorics sounds super complicated, but it's actually just the elegant math of patterns and choices. Think about planning a huge wedding. You're trying to find every possible seating arrangement so that feuding relatives are far apart and friends are together. That's combinatorics, just on a tiny human scale. Now, imagine logically directing millions of data packets across the massive global internet at the same time without causing a digital traffic jam. That's combinatorics at a massive scale, vital for modern networks and computer programs. His research combines combinatorics, probability, and computer science, focusing a lot on random graphs. He often uses randomness as a clever tool for proof. By introducing pure chance into fixed structures, he can mathematically prove that certain complex networks must exist, even if he can't physically draw them. As he became a research professor, Loh thought that his Olympiad days were behind him. He thought he was done with it, but the Olympiad world was not done with him. In the summer of 2002, a friend casually suggested he apply for an open position as a grader with the National Mathematics Olympiad team. He hesitated for a very long time. He told his friend he had never thought to apply before because he truly believed there were many better people out there to do the job, but he got pulled in anyway. By the end of his first summer training program with the team, he had made an unforgettable impression on the staff and the young students. Somehow, he got voted best lecturer, which completely even shocked him. The US National Olympiad training camp became a centerpiece in Po Shen's life over the next 2 decades. For 3 weeks every year, he taught in an intense boot camp vibe, setting up teaching 60 of the most brilliant students from across America. He'd dive deep into creative problem solving with these super smart teenagers, often late into the night. He rejects the focus on memorizing formulas. Instead, he views mathematics as pure, boundless creativity, comparable to the fine arts and humanities. To hone his presentation and spontaneous thinking skills, he deliberately took professional improv comedy classes. Improv taught him how to be stuck in a high-pressure situation and invent a clever way out. It taught him enough mental outs that he lost the fear of facing a crowded classroom of brilliant minds on a problem for which he didn't have an immediate answer. He mastered the ability to be completely lost in front of an audience, yet confidently laugh his way through the difficulty until the solution eventually became clear. He climbed the administrative ladder slowly at the camp. Year after year, he proved his commitment, staying up late to grade papers and create tough problems for the high schoolers. In 2010, he earned a big promotion to deputy leader for the International Mathematical Olympiad team. The Mathematical Association of America eventually put him in charge as head coach in 2013, basically giving him the keys to the whole operation. He held that top spot until 2023, influencing a whole generation of bright minds. When he took over, he made changes to how things ran. He anchored the summer training program permanently at the Carnegie Mellon University campus in Pittsburgh. This gave the students an incredibly stable, top-tier academic home base. Within that new home, he pushed hard to create a culture of early collaboration. In standard school's curriculum, if you collaborate on a math test, you might get in trouble for cheating. But in his world, collaboration is a must-have because professional math is always a team effort. Real mathematicians aren't usually sitting alone in dark rooms waiting for a lonely aha moment. They talk constantly. They argue loudly at whiteboards. They share half-baked ideas over bad coffee. He based his teaching style on 6 simple principles. First, focus on the kids, not the trophies. Loh always told his students that the immediate contest results weren't the most important thing. His real goal was to see them doing truly amazing, world-changing stuff 20 years down the road. Second, go deep over going fast. He actively made sure students didn't just become test-taking machines. Standard cram sessions that push for blind speed were avoided. He instead urged kids for deep thinking. Third, he brought the world to their doorstep. A big change at the summer camp was to invite Olympiad teams from lots of different competing countries to practice right alongside the 60-person US group. He covered all their costs, helping them build international friendships with 0 hidden motives. Fourth, he showed them what math looks like in the future. Instead of piling on an endless amount of math problems, Loh brought in top-tier professional researchers. This gave the teens a clear direction by showing them exactly what their grown-up future could be like. Fifth, he built intellectual guts. Loh really wanted students to try creative solutions to problems that seemed impossible. He taught them to aggressively see failure as super helpful information for getting better. Failures are not a personal letdown. Finally, he wanted to make thinking last. Students had to sit quietly with one tough problem for a full 30 minutes. This mandated half-hour of concentration actually trains the brain to come up with completely new ideas rather than lazily recycling old ones. This unique, human-centered way of doing things delivered amazing results. Within a matter of 2 years, the US team went from being one of many contenders to absolute dominance at the competition. For a few years, from 2011 through 2014, the US team was always amongst the top finishers, but never snagged the ultimate win. Then came 2015, and they finally broke the long losing streak dating all the way back to 1994, taking the #1 spot from China, which had dominated the competition in the past 2 decades. They kept that momentum going in 2016, achieving back-to-back dominance and once again a top spot, which even earned the team an invitation to the White House to meet the president. While South Korea managed to take the top spot in 2017, the US team once again won the top spot in 2018, reclaiming the throne, and then tied for first place in 2019, keeping that gold standard alive. When the pandemic arrived in 2020, Loh shifted gears fast. As a Hertz Fellow, he had made a formal commitment years earlier to use his abilities in the event of a national emergency, and he took that promise seriously. He threw himself into building Novid, an app shaped by his background in combinatorics and network thinking. Most contact tracing apps worked like grim messengers, warning people only after exposure had already happened. Novid tried to do something different. It aimed to show not just whether you had been exposed, but how many degrees away the virus might be in your interaction network. That idea required a technical juggling act. Bluetooth by itself was too sloppy, often reading people in neighboring rooms as if they were face-to-face. Loh and his team combined Bluetooth with ultrasound and wireless internet to get something more precise. Ultrasound, by measuring how long sound took to move through the air, helped narrow the real physical distance between phones and cut down on false alarms. The system also protected anonymity, relying on randomized identifiers designed to work across large populations. This was classic Loh: take an abstract, highly technical idea, then rework the incentives so ordinary people would actually want to use it. After leading the US Math Olympiad team for nearly a decade, Loh stepped down as the head coach of the US IMO team in 2023 so he could help out more than 60 elite students every year. He wanted to make his teaching accessible to more. What had started with a small experiment with elite students at a sealed-off summer camp had a chance to become something bigger: math for everyone. After stepping down, he founded XPI, a digital learning platform packed with interactive puzzles and lessons, and later built Live, a remote coaching system. He rolled out the daily challenge too, offering public math explanations to anyone curious enough to click. He has been married for decades to Debbie Lee, a fellow Caltech graduate who studied geophysics. They met during freshman orientation and married the day before graduation, then went on to build a family together. They have 3 children. His daughter Vivian shares Loh's love for math. In 2019, she became the Pennsylvania Math Count state champion. At the time, she was a 7th grade student at Winchester Thurston School and made history as the first girl to win the Pennsylvania state competition in its 36-year history. She would go on to win gold medals in the European Girls Mathematical Olympiad in both 2022 and 2023. In 2023, she was one of only 14 girls globally to achieve a perfect score at the event. Loh's wife, Debbie, who did not come from an advanced math background, taught herself the material so she could teach Vivian. Sometimes, that meant spending 2 hard hours working through a single problem alone at the table, just to be ready for the next morning's lesson. She stayed roughly a week ahead of her daughter, learning the material in real time. Loh now tells students and parents, often and loudly, to become more human, not less, to lean harder into creativity, judgment, emotion, and original thought. He warns that overusing AI as a replacement for thinking does something dangerous. It weakens the mind through disuse. He carries that argument on the road, speaking in more than 100 cities a year, in school auditoriums, public parks, and community centers, urging families to let children wrestle with hard problems instead of escaping them. At the same time, he has taken on as the inaugural vice president for advancement at the International Mathematical Olympiad Foundation. There, he has worked to build alumni networks and create the kind of global community he believes mathematical talent should serve. In his view, extraordinary ability in math is not a nationalist asset to be hoarded. It is a civic resource, one that can connect generous and capable people across borders and turn them toward the world's largest problems.